Hi there, friends. Dave Paulides, Canammissing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video channel. And we're in the silo again. A little brisk outside and a little windy, so we're going to do it from indoors. Just as I was coming in to do this, some breaking news came across. And that was about the Garish family that I did a video about earlier. That was a family of three and their dog that disappeared just outside of Yosemite National Park in Mariposa County, California. The three of them, husband, wife, and a one-year-old baby, were found on the ground, deceased, all in close proximity to one another, with the dog also deceased nearby. The sheriff of the county made a declaration that they died of heat-related issues, hyper, H-Y-P-E-R, thermia, and heat stroke, something along those lines. And he also said, and possibly dehydration. And he said that it's also the belief that the dog died of that as well. Sounds like they didn't send that dog for a necropsy to the University of California, Davis, one of the best vet schools in the nation. They should have. Now, my thoughts on this. I don't ever remember hearing about a case where an entire family drops dead simultaneously. Just doesn't happen. The reason being that is that people of different size, different weight, different composition, different fat percentage, have different reserves in their body, and they'll die at different set of circumstances. Not everybody in that family drank the same amount of liquid in the previous 24 hours. And while it's possible that someone may have died, what about the other adult? You would have thought that that other adult would have gone and turned for the car to get assistance. I can't see them all laying down to die together. The other adult would have grabbed the child and gone for help. Now, the dog laying there with the family, that's another thing I just don't understand. A dog would have sat with the family for a certain period of time, but then after the family would have passed on, I do believe that that dog would have wandered away, looked for water. There was a river nearby. The entire scenario is very unusual. And you couple that with the fact that they were found in an area called Devil's Gulch. Yeah, true story. So they were young, they were healthy. Some reports said that the temperature in that area that day was 107. But I also had other reports that said it was 93. It's a big difference. 107 is hot, but I don't think that people are going to go for a hike in blistering hot weather to the point of killing themselves as a group, all dropping together with the dog and the baby all in the same spot. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it. It just seems... the odds of it happening in that way, I think, are astronomical. So I'm going to leave that as it be. And I'm not calling the sheriff out. He's reporting whatever the coroner tells him. So anyhow, I got a few questions this week on my thoughts about remote viewing. I've also done a video about it. I've talked about it incessantly, but here we go again. Remote viewing. It was developed by the Army and used decades ago. Supposedly our military used it to they're sort of like psychics. And they supposedly had some great success. I've had the fortunate, I guess, time of meeting one of the most famous remote viewers in the world at a conference I did several years ago. We both spoke. At the end of the conference, he offered to help me. I had a very difficult time getting him to help eventually. Eventually, I got a photo to him, and his answer to me on what happened to this person, I knew from the very beginning, was so far off the mark, it was ridiculous. He said the person would be found on the other half of the US, which he wasn't. He was later found very close to where he disappeared. Everything about it made no sense. The person didn't seem interested. He was, again, one of those people that sells great classes, tells fantastic stories, and draws great maps. But he was so far wrong on this case, it was ridiculous. Another remote viewer, equally as famous, I would say probably super famous for his remote viewing stories. We had a conversation. I said, hey, have you ever found somebody that was missing? He said, oh yeah. He gave me the name of the person. Well, it wasn't that long ago. So I looked up the person, found his wife, called his wife. The wife said that the person was a shuckster, said that the person did nothing to help find her husband. He made guesses. They weren't even close. The remote viewer told me that he gave the information that led to the finding of the husband's body. Wife said that's a complete lie. All right. I never used that person, obviously. One thing about remote viewers, they tell fantastic stories. I could listen to them for hours. They draw fantastic diagrams. I'm impressed. But you know what? I thought about this carefully. I could never vet one story that those men told. I don't care what you say, I never could. Now, I don't know of one missing person that's been found by one of these remote viewers. I don't care what they say. I haven't been able to find a case where they solved one. Now the question being is, if you were a remote viewer and you had these special skills, what better thing to do than to go find a loved one that's missing from a family and the family is destroyed over their disappearance? What better way to gain instant credibility than to go tell us all where this person is? Exactly. So, just like everything else, I'm not saying that all remote viewers are inefficient or ineffective. I'm just saying, and listen carefully, I have not met a remote viewer that has found a missing person or has led to the finding of a missing person. And the ones that I have met are more interested in selling their classes than proving their skills. So, don't misquote me. Those are the facts. Okay? So let's get into some letters here. I want to thank you for your video when you talked about regarding bottled water. I buy bottled water for my whole family, including our dogs and cats. I was unaware that some companies added chemicals to the water. I then checked the brand water we buy and found out that they indeed did put chemicals in it. I've switched to Aquafina. The chemicals they put in the water are harmless in small amounts. Hold it. The chemicals they put in the water are harmless in small amounts. However, they could still cause stomach issues even in small amounts. Thank you. Since I switched, I no longer get heartburn from drinking water. I've watched all your videos, movies, and in the process of reading the 3 books I have purchased from your site and not on Amazon. I'm sharing them with my family members, and when you are done, I will donate them to our local library. Thank you. Thank you for your hard work you have put into making us, the public, aware of mysterious disappearances and safety tips for hiking. You are making a difference in people's lives. Please don't let the rude and negative comments discourage you as you provide a public service. Take care and know we are the community, as always, here if you need us. Well, thank you. Thanks for paying attention. You know, I tell friends all the time, you got to read what's on the package and what you're putting in your body. And one of the things that when I'm on the trails, I eat a lot of are nutritional bars. And I would say 80% of the nutritional bars are not nutritious. They're bad for you. There's way too much sugar, way too much caffeine, etc. And one of these days I'll come out and I'll talk to you about bars specifically and the kind that we carry with us all the time. But be very careful about what you put in your body. Read and understand. Next letter. Thank you for the information on your channel. How in the name of God are this many people going missing in our national parks and forests? It's a scandal. Each time I get a new YouTube clip come in, I see the faces of these very ordinary people every day. Young and old, loved ones belong to someone. Each one represents a family missing them and probably going out of their way with loss and memory. Loss and worry. It's shocking, Dave. It's uncomfortable to look at their faces knowing that something terrible or harmful might come to them. And they're just people like you and me. There's something different about this, something hopeless that I can't put my finger on. There's just too many cases. It's off the scales. I hope if anything this channel keeps up their name, details, and memories alive, and please God, perhaps even help locate them. Thank you. I hope we do. Next case. Next email. Dave, your recent video about the missing Palmer brothers from Alaska had my rapt attention. I listened intently as you told their tragic stories. What really struck me was where they went missing, because I too went missing not far from there about 20 years earlier. The year was 79 or 80. I was 12 or 13 years old. My parents and I had gone camping in a place called Nancy Lake Marina. It was a private campground which was located about 20 miles from where Michael went missing and about 50 miles from Bald Mountain where Charles disappeared. That sunny Saturday afternoon, as the three of us sat around the picnic table eating our campfire breakfast, we could hear the sounds of ducks and geese as they noisily went about their morning business. Off in the distance, the hum of a Mercury or Evinrude transported many a fisherman off to their favorite spots. Sitting there, I looked toward the far end of the lake. I thought, I should go there. Yeah, I need to go there. It's only a mile or two. I could follow the railroad tracks. To this day, I really don't know why I wanted to go there. I just did. What's more, I knew my mom and dad wouldn't let me. If I asked permission, so I didn't. Looking back, I will admit this was so stupid. My three older brothers had received a stern scolding for doing that very same thing a trip or two ago. They had been gone for hours. When they returned, they were wet and muddy. My parents were furious. Not because of the condition of their clothes and shoes, but because they had been gone for so long, 5 or 6 hours. After breakfast, I grabbed my baseball cap and put a leash on my dog. She was a German Shepherd Husky mix and quite protective, even aggressive toward perceived threats. In just a few minutes' walk, we reached the end of a rugged camp road that led to the trail that would take us to the railroad tracks. Along the way, we passed by a few campsites occupied by campers, tents, and a smoldering fire or two. We ducked through the bushes and limbs as we navigated the short path. Finally, we emerged at the base of a rocky embankment that led up to the tracks. Up we went without care or concern. We walked down the tracks for a very short while, less than 5 minutes. My head was down, searching for a loose railroad tie to snatch as a souvenir, when I heard a very low growl that stopped me in mid-stride. Without moving my body, I immediately looked up. Only my eyes moved as I searched ahead for the wild animal that would consume me. I saw nothing. The lake noise went silent. It seemed as if we were moving in slow motion, like a dream. With my heart pounding in my throat, my eyes darted to the heavily wooded area to the right of the track. Nothing. So I looked to the left, to the marshy area on the lakeside. No, nothing. None of this made sense. The growl came from nearby. I felt the vibration of the growl. It had to be close. Confused, I looked down at my dog. Did the growl come from her? No. But she had heard it too. She was on high alert. Her neck and shoulder hair stood on end. as she stared into the woods. I was not mistaken. There was a growl, and it came from somewhere up ahead. Following her gaze, I looked into the woods for a long moment. Still nothing moved, nothing growled, no sounds from anywhere. I'm the youngest daughter of 6 children in a blended family. My 3 older brothers often teased me by jumping out from behind corners or doors to scare me. They would laugh as I would scream in terror. Then they would call me names like baby or sissy. Sadly, this daily treatment would affect my decision making at that moment on the tracks. Staring at the motionless woods, my inner voice told me, "It's nothing, you baby. Keep going. You're not a sissy." Before I could even place my foot on the ground, I was hit with more terror than I'd ever felt in my life, even to this day. It was as if I moved into a brick wall. It was that tangible. The voice in my head now told me, "You will die if you go any further." My heart pounded wildly once more. Instinctively, I began backing up. Important point here. Friends, you were given a brain to use it. When that brain tells you, get out, turn around and get out. Do not press your luck. That's how people end up dead and missing. I can almost guarantee it. We have this inner voice sometimes, and I've talked about this many a time, especially when I was a policeman and searching a building for an armed suspect. Sometimes I just knew there was nothing there and we were going through the motions, and other times I knew that person's in here and they're going to hurt me. So I need to be really cautious. Just like this girl hearing this message here. Pay attention to that inner voice. At that point, we turned around and began walking forward. Never looking back over my shoulder, I was no longer concerned what was lurking in those woods. We made our way back to the overgrowth path, then onto the rugged camp road. Without care or concern, we walked back into camp. As we strolled into the site, I could see my dad moving hastily in and out of the camper. When my mom caught sight of me, she yelled at my dad with relief, "Here she is." I couldn't imagine why they were so frantic. I'd only been gone for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, 30 at the most. I hadn't even walked a quarter mile, there and back. "Didn't you hear us calling for you?" she said furiously. "No," I replied with eyes as big as saucers. I was surprised by all the concern they showed. It was not unusual for me to entertain myself on our camping trips, although my older brothers were not with us on this trip. When they were, they didn't want me tagging along, so often I had to explore with myself or the dog. My parents, "We've been looking for you. Where did you go?" "I was just walking the dog. I didn't go far. I wasn't gone that long," I muttered in my defense. To my complete surprise, she said, "You have been gone for 6 hours. Woo! Saddened that I had upset my parents, I decided not to tell them what just happened to me on the tracks. They would never know about the growl that vibrated through me and stopped me mid-stride, the intense fear for life, or the missing time and memory loss. I only remember walking there, stopping once I heard the growl, freezing in place, looking and seeing nothing, then turning around to walk back into our camp. It was around 3:30 or so in the afternoon when I returned. Even though there were many daylight hours left in the northern sky, I was unusually tired. My dog and I went into the camper and fell asleep. I have a slight foggy memory of my mom nudging me that it was time for dinner. I skipped dinner that night and went back to sleep, not waking up till the next morning. I've heard very similar stories and don't know quite what to say about it. Obviously, something very unusual happened to this person. And if it was me, I would probably try to find someone to help me with this in the UFO community, because they deal with this missing time issue a lot. Next one. Dave, was watching your video about people who claim to see melting faces, and it reminded me of an experience I had 2 years ago. Just so people know, I had a friend that asked me, he said, "Hey, Dave, ask your audience." He goes, "Every once in a while I'll be driving along and I'll look at a car and the face just appears to melt off the person. Doesn't happen a lot, but it's happened to me a few times. Could you ask your audience if it's ever happened to them?" This is about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Person says, I was at work talking with my boss and I glanced down at her left arm and saw a green glowing area about 4 by 5 inches in size. I thought I was having a problem with my eyes, but when I looked around the office, I didn't see the green. But when I looked around the office, I didn't see the green glow. But when I looked back at her arm, it was there again. I looked away again, and when I noticed, and I looked back at her arm, the green glow was gone. I haven't seen it since. Was it a glitch in the matrix? Was my boss a reptilian? Have you ever heard of anyone having this experience? I thought maybe I was seeing her aura and a possible future health problem with her arm, but she never complained of any issues. I've never heard of it. If you guys have heard of it, put some messages on the email form and on the video forum, and I'm sure we'll get some responses. Dave, thank you for making a huge impact on mankind, and I personally thank you. For example, when thinking of a birthday gift for my son, immediately Rico, R-E-C-C-O, came to mind, and I would not even have known about the Rico technology if not for you. Also, we got him a personal locator beacon last year, again, 100% because of you and your diligent work. Man, that makes me feel comfortable. Rico, R-E-C-C-O, is a new technology that's come out, and a helicopter uses it, and they fly along, and they have a locator that can find this reflective technology in areas many miles away. And a lot of new outdoor companies are putting Rico technology in their clothes. Yeah. So what I did is I bought, for all of us, a little strip made by Rico that you just put on your backpack. Here in Vancouver, Washington, neither REI or Sportsman's Warehouse carries Rico devices. REI only has clothing built with Rico. However, going to Amazon.com, I immediately found a full selection of Rico products available and delivered at the push of a button. Why am I mentioning this? Because it is an excellent example as to why Amazon is completely taking over retail shopping. Amazon is like an invasive species, killing off many of the local brick and mortar stores as it grows. And in the era of COVID-19, I could order from Amazon and I wouldn't even have to leave my house. As far as COVID-19 goes, ask yourself, who is making money off the epidemic and who is gaining market share? How much money have the insurance companies saved due to the lack of personal travel and auto usage alone? Anyway, Dave, I really just wanted to thank you for everything you do. My wife and I pray for you every day when we say grace. You will be with Ben again, and you must remember at this time on earth is only a very thin fragment of whatever this is all about. Life is struggle. Life is pain. Try to still allow happiness and fulfillment reach your soul, even if only in small bits right now. If it is only that you can allow to come in. Be kind to yourself. Love yourself. Evidence and some wisdom gained has taught me that we are here for 3 main things. The human experience, which includes pain and elation and everything in between. The mission, and to be tested. So Dave, if you look at your life, you have definitely experienced the full range of human emotion to the extreme. You have also found a very important mission, and you have definitely been tested. The good news is that you have come through still fighting the fight and contributing to fellow mankind. How perfect is that? I'm sure God is very pleased with you. Thanks for the kind words. Next story. I appreciate the heartfelt emotion you share with us. I lift you up in prayer for your relief from your understandable grief. I've had many mystical experiences which I will not discuss for the sake of brevity. In my human opinion, the authorities will not admit they are completely powerless to an obliviously superior intellect and powers they cannot protect us from. Religions and governments are founded by human forces, and the admission that guns and educational degrees are useless is too much for the authoritarian ego. On a lighter note, my brother, Dave, and I had a UFO experience in '69 on a small dairy in central Wisconsin. I was 14 and he was 13. It was late fall and dark, but we still allowed the cows to graze before milking time normally. We could call them up to the barn by intoning, "Come on, boss, come on, boss, come on, boss." But they did not respond this time, so we went out with our dog to get them. Things got weird fast as we approached the cows. The dog started barking and jumping around as if confused. The cows were nervous and looking around like they were scared of something, and we could not round them up. I sensed something and looked up. There was an oval-shaped object that had to be the size of a blimp. Brilliant lights were flashing along its perimeter, but they did not light up the entire area, which by natural law they should have. I yelled, "Flying saucer," started running across the field in a panic. My brother Dave yelled, "Little green men," and started running behind me. We got to the barn and told our older brother what had happened, and he said, "Get the hell out of there and get the cows or I'll kick the blankety blank out of you." That's Wisconsin lingo like, "What time is it? Tree turdy and look over here, dat." Whatever. We didn't want to take a pounding, so we went back outside and cautiously approached the cows. I asked Dave why he yelled, "Little green men." He said he didn't know why, he was just scared. We got back to the cows, watching the sky, and didn't see anything. The cows and the dog acted normal, and we got them back to the barn. We're in our 60s now, and I did not tell him what I recalled because I didn't want to influence his memory of the incident. I asked him what he remembered, and he said, "I just remember running across the field for my life." I guess I'll end with a couple of things I've experienced in my journey. I was raised traditional Catholic. In my life's walk, I've been with the Muslims, Hindus, Jews, and Buddhists. Our Creator is our Savior, and pure acceptance. Ben is more than okay in waiting for you. No matter what darkness befalls us in our own human past, we are saved. That kind of sums up what I've learned. That is as well as I can communicate it from one human soul to another. Peace, brother. Peace to you. You know, I'm amazed every week how many great people are out there in this world. You know, we make a big deal out of the negativity that hits us. But there are people that are just salt of the earth. Good souls. Thankfully, I hear a lot from them like this. I've got a few friends that are like that. Salt of the earth. I couldn't do enough for them. They care a lot about me. It's good to hear. So, I'm going to talk to you about a few cases from different parts of the world. Start with the most current case this time. And a lot of you have asked me to discuss it. And that's a little girl named Cleo Smith, disappeared from Western Australia, the Perth area. She was camping with her parents and her sister in a park right next to the ocean in a multi-room tent. Now, this is Western Australia, so Perth is way down here. And this is Carnarvon, which is right on the ocean. And then there's 28 miles up to a place called the Blowholes. The family lived in Carnarvon. And it's about 620 miles north of Perth. And it was just a nice escape to go tent camp on the beach. So they had a 2-bedroom tent. The girls slept in one room, the parents in another. And Cleo was sleeping on an air mattress, and her sister was sleeping on a cot. Distinctly different ways to sleep. Keep that in mind. So So at 1:30 in the morning on October 16th of this year, Cleo wakes up, tells her mom that she needs some water. The mother gives Cleo the water, and they go back to sleep. The mom wakes up at 6 a.m. and sees that the tent door is unzipped and Cleo is gone, as well as her sleeping bag is gone. Now, this is Cleo. Really, really cute little girl, 4 years old. It's been missing now for going on 5 days. And this is a serious case, folks. And I'm not bringing this up because I think it's a 411 case. I'm bringing this up because the entire country of Australia is heartbroken over where this girl is. And I don't think she's in the water, which is in the ocean right next to where they were camping. I don't believe it. Here's why. First of all, her parents have cooperated 1,000%. The mom and dad said that they woke up at 6 a.m., realized the tent's open, the sleeping bag's gone, and they thought, well, maybe there's a chance that our little girl woke up and just grabbed the sleeping bag and left. No. I don't believe that. Now, here's why. Because when the police got there, well, the parents left, they searched the campsite area, then they got in a car, drove around, called the Australian police. They get there and the parents didn't move the zipper on the door to the tent. And the police said, well, how tall is your daughter? And they showed them and said, well, your daughter couldn't have put the tent zipper up that high. That's number one. Now, there's a lot of things about this case that trouble me greatly. And I don't mean just a little bit. They trouble me a lot. So first of all, here's a picture of the one-piece pajama outfit that Cleo was wearing. And that is what the sleeping bag looked like. So, pajamas, sleeping bag. This is put out by the police. So the police bring in 100 search and rescue professionals, drones, helicopters, and they're looking in the water, they're looking on the land. There's a lot of sagebrush on the land, not a lot of big trees. They did release the fact that near Carnarvon and where they were located in McLeod, that there were 20 registered sex offenders. And the police said that they rounded them all up, talked to them, and that they weren't the suspects. Okay. Here's my concern. The family was from a town maybe 30 miles from where they were camping. Somebody, this is my theory, somebody from their town or somebody from that immediate area followed them into that campsite. Or somebody from their town knew they were going camping and targeted that little girl. I think it's weird that the girls were sleeping in different or on different platforms. One on a cot up off the ground and one on the ground. I just think that's a little odd. But somebody coming into that tent in the darkness hours, and number one, not waking up the parents, number two, having to have a flashlight to figure out where in complete darkness these girls are at, and then to take one in, you got to think, just carried her out in the sleeping bag and never be heard, not wake up the little girl that's in the room with Cleo, or wake up the parents. Friends, I got to tell you, that's a scary scenario. Because I always think, what would have happened if somebody like an adult would have woke up in the middle of the night and caught this as it was happening. I got to tell you, this is not unheard of, but it's almost never happens. Almost never happens in the States. You know why? Because campers have guns. Somebody comes in my tent in the middle of the night, I'm going to presume that they're there to harm me or harm my kids, and that person will probably be dead. Just the fact of life. Don't come into my house in the middle of the night. Don't come into my tent in the middle of the night. You're probably going to get maybe 2 seconds to give an explanation. And if you're armed, or you don't have any business in my tent, or if you have my arms around my kids or around my wife or around my significant other, you're going to be eating lead. Just the way it is. So to think that somebody came into this tent, took this little girl in her sleeping bag, wasn't heard, and then had to have gotten into a vehicle to get out of the area and still wasn't heard, boy, that is a big stretch. But as the police are saying now, that's what they think happened. They think she was taken by somebody. Because at this point, the sleeping bag is heavy. She couldn't have drug it around for this long. She would have been found, number one. Number two, there'd be no reason to drag it around. Number three, her outfit was very bright. Helicopters would have seen it from the sky. FLIR would have picked her up at night. But it's a case that I really, really have concerns about. There's only 2 other cases I've even known about that are similar to this. One happened about 30 years ago in Montana, kind of near Great Falls. And there was a very hardened serial killer, they didn't know at the time, that slid open a side of a tent while a family was camping, took a child out, murdered him, molested him, killed him, and I believe left him in a field, later found. They eventually put the case together on the person. But I think I only know 2 or 3 of these things in all my time in law enforcement that was even remotely similar to this. Do I think she'll be found? I hope so. The police have just stated that there's a $750,000 reward. Somebody said in US dollars, that's $1 million. I don't know. But that's a lot of money. And that's a smart thing to do, because this is a very, very bad crime, and it'll take a lot of money to get someone to say something. Now, more times than not, somebody doing this probably lives alone, probably is a male. I'm just going by the profiles of who has done this in the past. Probably doesn't have a lot of contacts with the outside. Probably is no one that anyone suspects. And that's the weird thing. If you go back to Ted Bundy, one of the things that the women that survived around Bundy would say, he was such a nice guy. I never suspected he would have hurt me or hurt anybody. The people that do these things, the reason they get away with it is because they are so good at hiding who they really are. So if you live in Western Australia, I don't even care if you live in Perth, and I know that there's people out there watching this show, pay special attention to your neighbors. Pay special attention to odd behavior, people coming and going at odd hours. And I hope the police keep the pedal to the metal and are pushing forward with this investigation, because every day that goes by, the chances of solving it get monumentally less, really. So, Cleo Smith, 4 years old. Really, really sad story. Next story. story about a young man in Hawaii. And Samuel Martinez, 23. He went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and he was super smart. He was a microbiology major. So Samuel, this is not an old case. He's from North Bend, Nebraska. He took a trip to Kauai backpacking. He arrived May 27th of 2021. He landed at Lahui International Airport, called his folks, got a ride from the air, called his folks and said, hey, I'm doing good. I'm going to get a ride up to the mountains and talk soon. Well, he gets a ride to the mountains, and his phone is last pinged May 27th, the day he arrives at 8:20 p.m. in that area near the bottom of the mountains. Well, he's got a scheduled flight on May 25th, about a week later, to Los Angeles from Kauai. He misses the flight. Well, the parents wait, thinking, maybe he'll be on the next one or whatever, and calling his phone, nothing. Well, finally, a day and a half later, on the 27th of May, the parents report him as a missing person to Lincoln, Nebraska police, where he's going to school. On that day, Lincoln calls Kauai police and reports him missing. Well, they did some research, and they found out that Samuel got 8 permits to go backpacking at Koki and Waimea State Parks. He did a good thing. He got the right permits. He let people know where he was going. And they knew at least where to search. And they knew that also from the pings on the cell phone towers. Well, from May 30th until June 10th, there is a massive search. And Kauai Police Department and the Kauai Fire Department were the primary coordinators. And they got hundreds of people in there. They got helicopters, drones, and they did a full push effort. So, let me explain this to you here. Here's the airport. This area right here is a giant, like, nature preserve. And this is Waimea Canyon State Park. This is Sugi Grove Campground, and this is the Koki Lodge. Now, why is that important? So I'm going to keep that in front of you for a second. So nothing happened on this case until October 13th, about a week and a half ago. A local hunter finds a backpack at Sugi Grove in Koki State Park, and in the backpack, they find Samuel's prescriptions, almost new tent, and clean clothes. Based on the occupants, or based on what was in the backpack, they stated that he may have been there 1 or 2 days because the clothes were still clean and the sleeping bag was almost perfectly clean, and everything he needed there to survive. So the thought was that he stashed this in the bushes, and he was either going to go to the lodge at Koki for a break or someplace close by. But nobody ever saw him. Now, the area where they found the backpack, and it was a hunter that found the backpack, had already been searched dozens of times. Still nothing. He wasn't a small guy. He was 6 foot, 180, super smart, in great athletic shape. Was never found. Parents are devastated. They lose a brilliant senior going to school at the University of Nebraska. Now, I tell you this because these kind of stories, they tend to evolve over time. I'm not sure what happened to Samuel. There's a lot of crime out there in this area of Hawaii. It's a pretty remote area. Canines should have picked them up on the first time that they brought him in and were searching. They should have been able to find this backpack, because for sure his scent is all over it. And if he's in that area, they should have found him. So it's a true mystery. Now, I've talked about Hawaii before. I've talked about missing people on the islands, and it does happen. And there's no reason why it shouldn't. So, obviously, water everywhere. So, say a prayer for Cleo Smith and Samuel Martinez. Samuel was 23. Now, the next case is one that sat on my desk for a long time. And it's one that hits at my soul because the person at the center of this disappearance reminded me a lot of Ben. And many people have spelled this name wrong, and I'm going to make sure it gets to you the right way. Ryan Shtuka, S-H-T-U-K-A, Shtuka. He's 20 years old. This is Ryan. So Ryan lived in Beaumont, Alberta, Canada. He told his parents he wanted to go work at a ski resort for a season. He was an excellent snowboarder. And on December 1st, he left for the Sun Peaks Resort in British Columbia. He texted his parents regularly, told them he loved the area. And his parents tried to talk him into coming home on Christmas 2017, but he said he wanted to stick around and help his mates get through work. He was considered a super reliable guy. Well, on February 16th, he went to a bar with some friends. And then his friends went to this house party on a place called Burfield Drive, just on the perimeter of the resort area. At 2 o'clock in the morning, he's last seen leaving that house for his very short walk back to his residence. He never made it back. On that morning of the 18th, his roommates decided, hey, we better call the police. He's not here. They wanted to make sure he was. They thought maybe he was just sleeping over to friends, shacked up with somebody, whatever. Well, they call the parents. Parents decide, we better come out. RCMP calls out the dogs. Right away, there's an issue. Between the time that Ryan left the residence on Burfield Drive till that next morning, it snowed about 2 feet. So, first, this is a map. This is Vancouver, Canada. The black line is the US border. The resort is right here, Sun Peaks, just kind of northeast of Kamloops. Here's Kelowna, Vernon. Just got to get a feeling where it's at. Now, the resort itself sits in this valley, and Burfield Drive is at the southwest corner of this little resort area. And it snows a lot in this canyon when it gets going. So, you can kind of see the resort area while I tell you a quick bit more. So that on the morning of the 17th, when he should have been home, he wasn't. Finally, at about 8 o'clock that night, his roommates call the RCMP, then call the parents, Scott and Heather. And the RCMP responded with canines right away, didn't find anything. It was a 9-hour drive from the parents' home to the resort. Citizens heard about this from British Columbia and Alberta, and there was a huge response. And I'm talking huge. The disappearance of Ryan really resonated with the locals and the outlying community in Canada, because he was a good soul, good kid. And there were 3 theories about what happened. First of all, there were searches. They brought in tractors, backhoes. They cleared driveways. They cleared mountainsides of snow. Canines, flyovers, FLIR on helicopters, everything you can imagine. And they didn't find him. And they thought, well, you know, when the snow thaws, we'll have searches, and he's probably buried somewhere in the snow. Well, that summer and spring and fall, they searched massive areas. Wasn't found. Now we're over 3 years after the event, and still Ryan hasn't been found. Which doesn't make any sense. If he's anywhere in that area, a cadaver dog should have picked up the scent and he should have been found. Guaranteed. Now, here's the theories. Theory number one, Ryan got drunk at the house that they were at, left by himself, didn't know where he was going, wandered into the woods and died. Again, a baseless theory, but it's a theory. I don't believe that one, because if that was true, Ryan would have been found. He's not going to wander uphill in the snow and go over mountain ranges when it's 2 feet of snow on the ground and it's snowing more. They're going to find him. He's going to be in that basin. Cadaver dogs are going to pick up the smell and they're going to find him. No. Number two, he overdoses in the friend's house. The friends cover it up and they dispose of the body. Suppose it's possible. But when you get more than one person involved with a crime, loose lips sink ships is the saying, and eventually somebody's going to talk. I don't think so. It's possible. I wasn't part of that RCMP crew that interviewed the people at that house, and that would be an important part of the investigation. Third theory, he was crossing the street, car going too fast, snowy, icy road, hit him and killed him. Person got nervous, threw him in the back of the car, drove him 20 miles away and disposed of the body somewhere. Possible. Possible. 4, something else. 411 case. Weather transition, canines can't pick up a scent. Alcohol is related. There's a big creek nearby with water in it. It kind of fits that scenario. Now, the reason I show photos to people is that if you heard somebody bragging at a party, or, yeah, you know, one time I got drunk and hit somebody and disposed of the body, you know what? That's somebody's son. And Heather and Scott, they loved Ryan to death. And somebody needs to come forward and help these parents find their son. Where is Ryan Shtuka? Where is he? Somebody knows. One of the last press conferences I saw by the RCMP was the superintendent saying, somebody out there knows something. That person needs to come forward. Now, what I always say is there's 800 reporting crime numbers all over the US and Canada. You can call toll-free from anywhere. You can go to a payphone and put a quarter in and call, and they'll never know who made the call or where it came from, and just say what happened. I'd report it to British Columbia Police and say, hey, this is what happened. I'm really sorry. If you don't want to state your name, don't. But at least let him get some closure. Give him directions as to what you did with Ryan. Let him have that body back. It'll take a big weight off your shoulders if you know something. And you know what? There's a lot of bodies out there in the world that haven't been recovered. And I don't know what happened to Ryan, but if I can do one little thing to help his family, I'm going to do it. Because I saw the pain that was on their face. It resonated in my soul. I saw the pain in the Cleo Smith's family. That hurts. I haven't seen an interview with Samuel's family yet, but I'll bet you that they hurt just as bad as anybody else. So if any of these things can be solved, and our village can help do it, darn do it. How can we help? posting this video on all your social media sites. Let people know that we care. Some people may not care. We care. Some people may not want to be active and may not want to be part of the solution. I do. So if you can, give this video 2 thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. You can follow me on Twitter at David Paulides at canammissing. And usually all of these cases are talked about at some level as they're happening, because that's really where I post daily something related to our work. I really appreciate your support. And be careful out there. Christmas is coming up. If you know an outdoors person, no better gift in the world than a personal locator beacon. Recco device, R-E-C-C-O. Thank you very much. And if YouTube allows it, I'll be back again soon. Have a great week.